Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from IPR365.com and PodWeather.com with an update on the tropics. Hurricane season 2009 rolling along here. We haven't had a named storm yet, but we do have this interesting area flaring up in the Western Caribbean, and it's now designated as Invest Area 93L. And it is expected to move up towards the Yucatan and then into the Gulf of Mexico over the next 3 or 4 days, and we're going to have to see just how strong it may get, if at all. Here are the latest models on it, the spaghetti model plots as I like to call them, and you can see generally the current motion here on the extrapolation is in this direction, which if it held that for 5 days it'd be bearing down on South Padre Island. But it is expected to slow down quite a bit actually as it enters the Gulf, and the models diverge as to whether or not it's going to kind of just mill around out here or continue towards the west or even possibly start to turn, which I will show you in just a minute on the GFS model, which has been interesting. Now the NAM model here does bring it up into the Gulf of Mexico, and you can see there at the end by the 30th does have it as a formidable tropical cyclone there in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, and that would be something that we'd have to watch very, very carefully. You could see again a small storm, but nevertheless looking like the NAM is strengthening it there, and that would be something that we need to watch. The GFS model, as I indicated, does show our system coming out of the Caribbean Sea there into the Gulf and then making that turn towards Florida and weakening. Now, whether or not that occurs, again, we'll have to wait and see, although it would not be completely out of the ordinary. A lot of times in early season, we do have storms recurve towards the west coast of Florida. Now, here's the latest visible satellite imagery of the western Atlantic, and you can see our system here in the Caribbean. Not terribly showing signs yet of any circulation in there. However, as this moves on towards the northwest, it will get in a bit more favorable environment, and we are going to have to watch it. Now you can also see here on the water vapor, we have something happening where this flow over the top of it will start to bend like this in a more anticyclonic way. And for those of you who may not know what that means, cyclonic obviously is counterclockwise here in the Atlantic. When you have the anticyclonic, that's when you have clockwise. And what that does is if it gets over the top of a system, it can begin to ventilate it like that. And that's why we're going to have to watch, because if this indeed is going to occur as it moves towards the Gulf of Mexico, we could have a system that could be strengthening, and we actually do have the ship's model making this a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. Now the latest wind shear, as you can see on this map, does show that it is under pretty favorable environment right now, and you can see this shear here. You're thinking, well, Mike, what is that? That's 10, 20 knots of wind shear. Well, that's coming up and around the system, so that's actually favorable wind shear. This in the Gulf is not. However, as we move on 3 days from now, as we get towards the 29th, 30th of June, you can see that we are going to have very, very favorable wind shear in the northwest Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico, to where if this does develop a circulation, we would be dealing with the potential for intensification. Now, of course, water temperatures, you can see here, the Gulf of Mexico in June, very, very warm, especially here out towards the middle and central Gulf. So if we would have something developing here towards the Yucatan Channel and moving on up in a favorable environment, a hurricane of a Category 1 strength, as the ship's model shows, wouldn't be completely far-fetched. So we're going to have to watch this carefully. The rest of the Atlantic, you can see we do have this low pressure out here. This is an upper low, and note this wind tail here spiking like this. This is extremely unfavorable. That means anything moving this way gets absolutely torn apart. As we get into late July and August, that should begin to lessen. However, if this is an El Nino year where the winds are less favorable, something like this could be what we see for most of the season out here, but nobody is sold on that yet. Off Africa, we do have a few waves coming off, and you always have to watch because these could make it all the way to the Caribbean or the Pacific, but nothing should start spinning directly off of Africa for at least another few weeks. Eastern Pacific is quiet. We did have Hurricane Andres out there, but that is no longer anything to concern ourselves with. And we do have a tropical depression that has moved inland here in Asia, and some heavy rains with that, but nothing further it doesn't look like. So that'll do it this time for the Tropical Update. I'm Mike Naso from Internet Partnership Radio. I'll see you next time.